What's the number one challenge for businesses today?
Workforce development, attracting, recruiting, and retaining people.
And that's why we created this podcast, designed for the frustrated CEO, the under-resourced recruiter, or the overworked manager, to give you the tools to tackle those WTF moments.
It's time to open another workforce therapy file.
Welcome back to another installment of Workforce Therapy Files. And I know that a couple of our installments have had you scratching your head and saying WTF, and that's why we're here. But we also know that the things that we've talked about are not always super simple to tackle. So today we want to share with you how you can get help. So we're going to start off by talking about you have a number of things that you have been asked to do. You've been asked to write job descriptions. We talked about that. We talked about keeping updated on all of the governmental data that comes out. We've talked about conducting marketing campaigns and wage surveys and screening candidates, facilitating interviews, paying attention to your logistics, communicating with candidates that you've spoken with, making sure that you're up to date on all of the benefits that can be offered, having great onboarding. We've talked about a lot of things.
I'm exhausted.
I'm so tired already. And I don't even think we've tackled the entire list.
No.
So when you're a team of one or you're a team of 10 and a sea of 20,000, it can be a very daunting task to tackle all of those things and to do it in the way that's ideal. In fact, there was a point in my career where I actually stopped going to conferences because I was like, these people, they have lost all track of what is even possible in my day-to-day stuff. Mm-hmm. And so how would you guys suggest that those individuals who might be feeling that way after listening to some of the stuff that we've thrown out there, how would you encourage them to seek and ask for help?
Can I draw a similarity between
Yeah.
marketing and talent acquisition, since I'm the marketing guy? So I often bump into clients that will say, we're just going to hire, versus hiring a marketing staff or versus outsourcing, we're going to hire a marketing person. They always say a marketing person. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happens a lot with recruiters. We're going to hire a recruiter. And then, but what they don't understand, like with marketing, it's going to be really hard to find someone who can do graphic design, who can build a website, who can write copy, who can build an ad, who knows analytics. It's just asking too much for them to do everything. Same goes for talent acquisition. It's asking way too much to ask someone to do all these things. And so that's really where our companies kind of fill the gap for your team. And so, and I've had this question many times, how do I even ask for the help? Mm-hmm. It's intimidating. It really is. But there are a few ways. One of the number one things that I've personally heard is, hey, it's just not in the budget. I want it. I need it so bad for my own mental health. It's not in the budget, but it's there.
It's there.
It's there. You can find it. Scratch it out. Is turnover factored into your budget? Is in your experience, Molly, Jamie, do senior leadership typically factor in turnover?
Not as a dollar amount.
Okay.
You might see it in your headcount planning, but I don't typically see it as a dollar amount represented in the budget.
Yeah, I have not seen a P&L that has a line item for turnover. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that organizations don't know how much it costs to hire somebody.
Yeah.
They're going with statistics nationally, but that number doesn't mean anything to them and their position in their company, my opinion.
And then they're surprised when they say, oh my gosh, look how much money we spent on this.
Yeah, waste associated with workforce planning in general doesn't show up very much in the budget,
which is so surprising because what's
so much
top 3 things that are an expense to a company?
Absolutely.
Guaranteed, one of these 3 things is in there. Payroll
and benefits seem to be the top 2 things that make it in there.
But there's never a cost that's associated with that outside of your cost of goods.
That's right.
Help me understand.
I can't.
Come on.
I can't help you understand that.
But someone is always going to look around at the end of the year and say, why did we spend so much money on this? Well, you need to start planning for it.
Yeah.
So if it's not in the budget, get it in the budget. It needs to be in there. Because, another thing around the whole budget issue is things change. You can't keep it the same every year. You have to look at it. My goodness, especially the last 4 years, everything has changed on a quarterly basis almost. So to not have it in there and to not be flexible with it, you should actually probably inflate those numbers a little because something's going to change in the meantime. And there's an opportunity cost if you're not doing it. So, capital expenditures in a budget is another thing I'll mention. Sometimes there's room for capital expenditures. Capital expenditures can be things used for growth, things that weren't expected. Those line items are great to, and I'm just going to say it, they're great to poach if you're in a place in the organization that is dealing with constant change like you are. That's a line item you can say, do we have any CapEx money that we can spend on this? Mm-hmm. Maybe, last year you bought 800 printers for the building, and this year you don't have them. So you have all those dollars built in for the miscellaneous stuff. Grab onto some of those. See if there's something in there you can use, because you can turn that through a talent consultant, through a marketing company, through various different things. You can pay for, audits and people to look at your wages and your benefits, all those things. There's all these great tools out there that you can use that if you just had a little bit of extra money in the budget, you could tackle it. So
one of the questions that I like to ask when I go into an organization is, what is the cost of a failed hire? So to me, when I go in to speak with a key decision maker or an individual that is concerned about this, you have two big numbers from a recruiting standpoint. You have a turnover number and you have a churn number. Now, a lot of people relate to those two words very similarly. But to me, my definition of churn is what's happening before the person becomes profitable for your company. So how long does that individual have to be employed, go through training, become an expert in that line work that they're doing, for example, that they no longer have to lean into a leader for questions and guidance? What is that? Individuals that leave before that time, that to me is a churn number. Turnover happens after the person becomes profitable. Why do I say that it has two different terms? Because each of those numbers means something completely different.
And they reflect a different investment.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you lose someone in a churn phase, their cost to the company is going to be much different than that of someone that has skills and abilities to accommodate your changing environment to be successful than that person who was before. So you've got two different numbers, from talent attraction to the time that they start, so onboarding, then from onboarding to the day that they become a true ROI for you, and then beyond. So there are three different phases, if you will, of what the cost of recruiting and onboarding and workforce alignment should be. If you don't know what those three numbers are, even high level, you are doing your organization a disservice because you don't have those numbers. Why is it important? You can figure out those numbers and how to fix them, but your current workload, as we've said before, could be a laundry list of things, and you don't have time for something else. But also the advantage of having an expert come in and tell the story for you, I don't know, guys, to me it just feels like sometimes that has more weight. And at this point, I don't care who's telling the boss.
I mean, let's be clear. Every time you ever worked in an organization, you could have had the best idea ever.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
And then whenever you recommend it, people will be like, I don't know. But then when you get somebody from outside your organization
Brilliant.
that is that fresh set of eyes and they're saying
Brilliant.
the same thing that you said, or maybe a smidge different, because they might have a different approach in the way that they introduced it, but it gets a lot of weight.
yeah, or they'll back it up with numbers or something. But yeah, if it's an outside influence, it matters. I loved what you said, Molly, about churn versus turnover. I think we could do a whole file on that,
I really like it too.
because
Super
churn,
smart.
Thanks.
when we're talking about budget,
Sometimes.
we're talking about budget and asking for money. I mean, you're right. The cost of churn and the cost of turnover are very different. And a lot of organizations, they just don't separate those things
They
out.
put it all in the same
Yeah, it's one
soft
thing.
dollar
A person
bucket.
left. Oh, no soft dollars.
Oh my gosh.
Got it.
But
That's going to be the t-shirt that comes out of this podcast.
no soft dollars.
Hashtag.
But yeah, all they see is that a person left. So, but yeah, churn might be more affected by front end processes, changes and spend versus turnover being affected. That's more culture and, anyway, gosh, that'd be a great one. Let's do that.
I'm writing it down. Note to self.
And I know it sounds cliche, but what is the cost of not having a budget conversation about your needs. You are, because typically leadership is thinking about this heavily once a year. This is your shot. And if you don't address it now, you're going to be the one dealing with it for the next 12 months.
So if you're not in the conversation, one of the things that I would highly recommend for talent acquisition, HR folks, is try to figure out who is representing the HR budget conversation for your division at the C-suite. You need to make sure that you understand who that is. Is it your chief people officer, your chief administrative officer, the HR director, depending on the size of your organization? But find that person and include them in a very detailed line item version of what your budget should look like, at least for the preliminary conversation, so that they're going in armed with that.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you have to go in with that person, or it doesn't mean you have to even build a case. I mean, sometimes it's just bringing it up and letting them know you're frustrated and that you need help. And you know, another thing I like to, and I say it all the time, is strategy, strategy, strategy. But I'll say it one more time. If you could go ask your senior leadership for, if you feel like you need $1 million to get this hiring campaign done, that's a big ask. And they're going to probably just knee-jerk reaction say no.
You know what my initial thoughts are when you said that? And I'm glad that you said that spontaneously and not before we started talking through this. But I want to know, what am I going to get for $1 million? How many positions am I going to fill? What's my lost opportunity cost that's going to be credited? What's the definition of how this is going to be a tenured employee versus not? That's what I think. What am I getting for $1 million?
And then you will be like, you know, and you know all these things, but being put on the spot like that is
That's right.
hard. So let's eat an elephant one bite at a time. Strategy. Can we just build a strategy for it? And then that strategy will reflect, of course, all the things that you need. It will define them. To Molly's point, it will give all the justification and numbers that someone in senior leadership needs to say, well, wow, we're actually going to be saving money if we do this the right way instead of spending another year doing it the wrong way.
Because that money will be in your budget one way or the other.
It may not have a direct line item, but it's in there.
No, and one of the things that business leaders will start to do whenever they have to tighten the budget is they will go to the line items that they have visibility to. So when it comes to human capital, you'll see these layoffs happen because I have to lower that expense line when there might be a whole host of other ways that dollars could have been saved in their people budget.
Yeah, and you're not going to save your way to profitability. So, you know, what you need is great talent that's going to stick around.
That's right.
And know the job, and they'll be way more productive, and that's going to help the whole company.
That's right.
So I wrote this down. Know what you don't know. Because we can all walk around and say, you know, I don't know. I feel like $1 million is the right answer from a marketing perspective. I feel like I need to hire 50 more people because I feel like that would help with churn. But why? If you can't define where the leaks are, what the problem opportunities are, where your long game cost is, what difference does it make how much money you ask for? Because the problem's not going away. Until you fix the problem, until you know what you don't know, you can't answer that question.
Yeah. And that's a great thing, just to go, like Jamie said earlier, go to the person you report to. It doesn't have to be an intimidation thing. You don't have to go into the CEO's office, you know, at 5 o'clock and say, I want to talk to you about something really important to me. You know, it doesn't have to be that way. It starts with a conversation with who you report to. And if they say, oh, I agree, yeah, we do need some help. Okay, now we're having a conversation. Let's frame out how and why. And I think it's important to go, when you finally do take this case to senior leadership, go to them with real numbers. You know, it's not crazy to create a PowerPoint presentation, to put numbers in it, to show cause and effect. You know, and a strategy build is not that expensive. You can get them done very affordably. And it's a fraction of the cost of one employee. So once you have this strategy, there are things inside that you'll be able to implement yourself without people like us. So take those things on, get the strategy built with an expert and your team so that you have a cheerleader on your side. And then use that strategy to build some of those things out yourself. And then when you start to need more help, reach out for help or hire for that help. Either way, don't be afraid to ask for it. I think that's the biggest lesson here is don't be afraid to state your case and to ask for some help when you're struggling.
Well, I think one of the things with Incipio in particular that I've tried to build as part of our plan and strategy in working with our clients is we never want to back them into a corner where they feel like they have to be handcuffed to us to be successful. That's the last thing I want. Most of the organizations that we work with in the beginning, it's for a bigger picture. But then as we continue to dive in, we understand where the true pain points are only because we have a different view than the people that are in the thing every day. So the partnerships that we have evolve over time into something greater that we never would have seen 3 years prior. So I think understanding individuals that you're reaching out to with areas of expertise in the problem areas of your company is where you need to focus and make sure the alignment is there to solve for together, not one-sided, my opinion.
I love that. Yeah, and I say to our team at Crowd South all the time, I don't like to think we have clients. I like to think we have partners. And so what will we do with a partner is we want to do what's best for our partner. And so that might be giving them the resources to go fish and hunt on their own. And that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the next time they want to learn a new skill, they'll come back to us.
That's right.
And we'll be there for them.
Yep.
And we're building a long-term relationship. So I would also advise that to anyone looking at asking for help. Don't just ask for help and take whatever help is given.
Yeah.
Be specific. I need help, and I need it with retention. And I have found this company, Parcel, that does retention work. They can come in and for between this dollar amount and this dollar amount can help us solve this problem. It is going to save us this dollar amount.
That's right.
And then how are they going to say no to that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to that point of talking about the financial investment, one of the big frustrations that I have is we'll talk to folks and they're like, yeah, I see where the value is. I know that you're going to lower my cost to operate, but I still can't afford that. Okay, what can you afford? Well, I don't know. Well,
Then how do you know what
then-
you can't afford?
right. So the frustration for me would be if a business leader or a business owner came to me and said, look, I've got $50,000 and that's all I've got for the rest of this quarter. What can you do for $50,000? Great. I'll tell you what I can do and what I can't do and why we should save that $50,000 for the next quarter when you have another 50 and we can do 100 at one time.
Yeah.
But I do understand from a decision maker's perspective that there are not a lot of people out there that are like us that are going to give that kind of advice because we're looking for partners, not a transaction. Just want to throw that in.
Yeah. So if you need, I'll make this offer if you need, and I know all three of us would happily be a part of this. If you are in a recruiting position, or if you're leadership and you know you have a problem with this, and you need numbers to back it up, and you need information, or you want to know how you can even approach it. If you want a strategy built, an inexpensive strategy that will just no one will ever blink an eye at in your budget, reach out. Reach out to one of the three of us. Between the three of us, we've kind of got it all covered. So I think if you reach out to us, we're going to be very positive about our response, and we're going to help you build a case for what you need. We'll help you identify what you need through that strategy. And then again, no one's handcuffing you to some long-term agreement. We want to help you. We want to see you grow and succeed. So let's just get a conversation started. If you want to ask for help, you don't know how, let us help you do it.
I like it. So I believe that this case has been closed.
Close that file, Jim.
Thanks for listening to the Workforce Therapy Files. We hope you learned something new, and we're thankful for the time that you spent with us today. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, reach out to us. Our contact information's listed in the show notes. Until next time, keep your head up.